Now, for some brands venturing into the product segment that isn't in their scope of, let's say, delivery, is sometimes really strange. But then again, we have Sapphire here that this was quite obvious for such a long time. Not obvious in terms that they will eventually make a motherboard, but in terms of it was supposed to happen quite sooner. So today we're going to talk about Sapphire Nitro Plus B850A Wi-Fi 7, and of course you have the M version, so micro ATX, and you have loads of other iterations with different like Pulse and Pure and stuff like that. But so far we're having here the Nitro Plus model, and wow, I have to say, no X version, but this B850A really does the job outstandingly good. And I'm really digging that you can actually combine the motherboard with the GPU when we're talking about the design, because right here we have the 9060 XT. Yeah, I don't have the 9070, but regardless of that, the visual aspect is so good, it's outstanding. So we're going to go through the specifications and then we're going to go through benchmarks because it surprised me quite nice. I'm really digging Sapphire making a motherboard, and let's go. So what we have right here is, well, basically I'll start with the obvious, which you can see from this build right here. The PCI Express first one is on the top. So the M.2 is behind the GPU. And this brings us to the point where the PCI Express lane slot is basically on the first position of the PCI expansion. So yeah, that's something that I haven't seen for quite some time, but I wanted to go into that segment. So we have 12 plus 2 plus 1 premium power stages, power phase design, speed optimized circuit design. We have robust thermal module for VRM and PCH, and DDR5 support up to 8000 megahertz. As you know, and as I tested, everything above 6400 megahertz on AMD is totally irrelevant. So then we go with chipset B850. We're having CPU support for AMD Ryzen 7000, 8000, 9000 series desktop processors with socket AM5. Supports 4 DDR5 memory slots up to 192 gigs. Supports dual channel mode and AMD Expo. Max overclocking frequency, as I said, it's 8000 megahertz. Now for the expansion slots that I already mentioned, we have first one is PCIe 5.0 times 16, the second one is 4.0 times 4, and the third one is 4.0 times 2. M.2 slots. We have the first M.2 slot, which supports PCIe 5.0 times 4, and the second and the third one are PCIe 4.0 times 4. For the SATA, we have 4 SATA on the far right side with 6 gigabit per second ports, which is standard. For the LAN, we have Realtek RTL 8125BG 2.5 gigabit per second LAN controller. Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, we have Wi-Fi 6 and Bluetooth 5 supported. And for the back I/O ports, we're gonna go from the top. We have DisplayPort, HDMI, BIOS update button, USB 3.2 Type A, USB 3.2 Type C. We have 4 USB 2.0. Then we have the LAN 2.5G. We have USB 3.2 times 2 Type A. We have 2 Wi-Fi antennas, C sub, rear, side, line in, line out, and microphone in. That's actually quite a lot for these 3.5mm jacks. Usually we get only 3 nowadays. But yeah, they did that, and that's quite alright. Now for some specs, just to wrap it up a bit, we have M.2 PCI 5.0 ready, DDR5 compatible with AMD Expo support, extended heatsink design, which means that all M.2s are covered with the passive heatsink, overclocking support, AMD multi-GPU support, expansion PCI 5.0 slots ready, Wi-Fi 7, Bluetooth 5, we have 12 plus 2 plus 1 premium power stage, NVMe SSD write capable, and NVIDIA NVLink ready. When we're talking about visual design, what I can say is it's a bit naked compared to today's X870 and B850 motherboards. In terms of they have the passive heatsink all spread out everywhere basically. But the crucial parts are covered nicely. So the VRMs have a nice passive heatsink regarding the cooling and everything all together, and also taking into consideration M.2 slots which are covered. I do have to admit, when opening and checking out the M.2 slots, the first one has quite thick thermal pads, which is quite unusual, I do have to admit. But regardless of that, let's continue. On the far left top side, we have dual 8-pin EPS connectors. We have high efficiency power delivery design for the VRMs and Nitro Plus capacitors, even though it doesn't say specifically what it is and what it does. Signature Nitro Plus thermal design. We're having a large VRM heatsink dissipation armor with full coverage of M.2 heat dissipation armor as well, dual layer chipset heat dissipation as well. So it's all nicely covered. As I said, some of them look a bit more bulkier when you place all the heatsink across all the complete motherboard, but regardless of that. And a couple of more things that I would like to add. Audio is Realtek ALC 897 HD Audio 7.1 channel. When we're talking about the memory support, it's not 192, it's actually 4 times 64 gigs at 256 gigs altogether. So that's a bit different because one thing it says on the box, one thing it says on the on their official website. So there must be an update regarding that. We have debug LED, so DRAM is yellow, CPU is red, GPU is white, and boot is green color. There is no RGB lights on the motherboard, so it's basically plain Nitro Plus visual aspect. So just clean visuals, no RGB lights for you guys that like that. And if you go with their GPU, you can easily switch it off through their software tricks, and basically you can connect because it has 3 addressable RGB 3-pin 5 volts headers, which is quite alright, and of course PWM, I don't even have to go with that. So when we're taking a look at the motherboard, just the visual aspect, it's nice. It resembles to Nitro Plus GPUs, as you can see from this generation and the past for this generation. Connectivity is there. I would only suggest, well, I can't suggest now, but basically maybe 2 more USBs at the back, Type A, that would be quite good, or eventually 1 more Type C, which would make this motherboard quite full with connectivity. But I encountered motherboards that have less than this, so this is quite solid and a bit above average, I do have to admit. Now, why am I fascinated by this board? First and foremost, it's quite easy and straightforward to install everything. I mean, it's with every motherboard, why am I talking about this? But the visual aspect is great, fits with their GPUs and BIOS. Now, when you go with some other brands like NZXT motherboards and you go into their BIOS, you can easily see that it's an ASRock behind everything. But here we have a completely new design of BIOS, and this is their own make, of course, because I haven't seen this type of BIOS anywhere. It's really straightforward, user-friendly. You have a nice GUI, and you can basically go through everything without a single problem. So let's go quickly through that as well, because, well, it's one feature that needs to be mentioned. You have the Sapphire core. You can easily switch PBO, XMP Expo, resize bar. You have the possibility for a performance profile, memory information. You have fan profiles. At the bottom, you have boot priority. And on the side, you have hardware states or basic info. Then we go with favorites, which you can add here. Advanced, you have common stuff like SMM mode, SMT control, turbo mode, precision boost overdrives, T-stats. Then we go with devices. You have also storage, power, TPM, and security. Then going forward, we have an overclock tab, which gives you an option to adjust the CPU. Then you can adjust, of course, the PBO, memory timings, and voltage. All done separately and quite nicely. I do have to admit, just check how the visual aspect of this BIOS is outstanding. For you guys that really like to tweak around your motherboard, this could be a lot different than compared to others. Then we have the status, you have the CPU and everything. It shows front thermals, TDP, core voltage, L1 cache, L2, L3 and everything all together. Memory, power, motherboard and fan, and all information about the board. And finally we go with the boot and tools, which give you some additional save changes and shutdown, exit, restart. This is actually the first motherboard that has save changes and shutdown. Yeah, it's something that I noticed. So altogether, new BIOS, completely redesigned. Well, not redesigned, but comparing to others, it's a completely redesigned BIOS, and it's really user-friendly. I think you can see that from the video. But going with benchmarks, and this is where I got fascinated by. So I use 7900X3D. just because I wanted to see, and I'm the most familiar with that CPU in terms of benchmarks, performance, and everything altogether. We have 9060 XT. We're having Kingston Fury Renegade RGB DDR5 2x16 at 6400 MHz CL32, and we're having Kingston Fury Renegade PCIe 4.44 terabytes. In AIDA 64 Extreme Edition, CPU went up to 80 degrees, which I got the best thermals so far in all benchmarks. With the clock speed at 4850, GPU went up to 50 degrees, which is nothing. Cinebench R23, 75.7 degrees on 10 average runs, 4963 clock speed, and 26,828 Cinebench points. The thermals are the lowest, the clock speed is somewhere around average, and the Cinebench score is quite close to the top, being almost at top 5. That's outstanding. Actually, that's brilliant. Now we go with AIDA AES. Now usually with this CPU we got 254,000 megabytes per second. Right here we have 267,824 megabytes per second. AIDA memory benchmarks 74,730 megabytes for the read. Write speed is 77,970 megabytes. Copy is 69,433 and latency 76.6. Latency is lower. Read, write are higher, and copy is really nicely just above average with these RAMs on other motherboards. Going back with Cinebench, but this time R24, average thermals are 74.2, clock speed is 5070, and the average score is 1519. That's solid. I think this Cinebench R24 doesn't show that much difference compared to R23, but still I want to run it to give you some more details. Now Geekbench 6, for single thread score I saw some going above 3000, but in this scenario it was 2985, and for the multi-thread score I saw some other boards with this CPU going above 18,000, maybe 100, 200, something like that. This one is 18,068, which is still okay. Corona 1.3, 51 seconds to finish the render. I think there was 48 and 53, depending on the motherboard and depending on everything else, cooling as well, with 9.4, almost 5 million rays per second. For the 9.4 million rays per second, or 5, usually it's in the lower 9.4, and this is quite close to 9.5 million rays per second, so that's good. Indigo benchmark, we have bedroom at 3.649 million samples per second. Usually it's somewhere between 3.3 and 3.5, so that's good. And then we have supercar. This is actually quite close, 8.113 million samples per second, which sometimes go to 8.3. That's quite all right. Corona 10, we have 9.1 million rays per second, which is just on the average, so that's good. And then we go with PC Mark 10. We're having overall score 9746, essentials is 12,643, productivity is 10,823, digital content creation 18,362. All of that is quite close to what I usually get with the 7900 X3D, so that's good. But when we go with Jetstream 2, usually it's 350,000. With this combination, it's 461,875. So that's brilliant. And then going with 3D Mark, first we're going to go with CPU profile. We're going with 11,566, 10,107, 7,326, and so on. And you can see it's a bit, sometimes it's a bit lower, sometimes it equals up. But when we go with TimeSpy, and specifically CPU, 14,318, and TimeSpy Extreme, 8,761. This is quite nicely averaged, and even some scores here go a bit above. Firestrike 33,621, Firestrike Physics score 39,055, and combined score is 14,044. That's great. That's really good. Firestrike Extreme 18,619 with the Physics score 38,994, and combined score is 96,031. FireStrike Ultra 9936, and physics and combined score are lower than usually what I get, 39,073 and 51,143. For the PCI Gen 4 SSD, we don't have to go too much into details regarding that because it performs as it should. So 7400, around 7400 megabytes per second read and 7000 megabytes per second write in Crystal Disk benchmark. So that's not an issue. And Gen 5 is also, depending on the SSD that you use, for instance G5 from Kingston Fury, it goes the same speeds as it should. So you don't have any problems with the SSDs. RAMs perform outstandingly good, and when you take all the other synthetic benchmarks, it either goes equal, less lower than average, but much more higher in scores than usual combination with this CPU and motherboard and RAMs. So I think this board, specifically this board, SAPPHIRE Nitro B850A Wi-Fi 7, is an outstanding board. It's a slim box, nothing specifically like we have from other manufacturers, but I was expecting much sooner for SAPPHIRE to release their motherboards and to create something which you guys can combine, so you don't have only like, I don't know, other manufacturer motherboards and then you have your SAPPHIRE GPU, right? Because they make outstanding GPUs and now they have outstanding motherboards. So what I can say is thank you SAPPHIRE for creating a motherboard for every AMD lover that actually appreciates the graphic cards. Now they can do the same for the motherboards because this board is really good. And specifically, I'm really enjoying the whole combination, the synergy and everything. The only thing that I would suggest is to make the Trike software really worthy of the motherboard, giving you a possibility to combine literally everything, because either I downloaded the wrong tracks again, or there's something missing. I would try to check that out a bit, but that's the only downside of this whole thing. Honestly, software is one of the important stuff behind any product that actually depends on the software at the background. But regardless of that, I think they're on the right path, releasing their first board, not this one specifically, but releasing in general their first motherboards, and big thumbs up. That's the only thing that I can say. PC Crazy approved badge for SAPPHIRE, for the, not in general for the Nitro Plus, well, basically for the performance and everything, but in general approved from SAPPHIRE to bring the motherboards to the market. And yeah, that's going to be quite nice to see all the future boards coming out and combining them with the GPUs. That's going to be quite outstanding. So guys, if you're interested in checking out their boards, I'll try to find as much as different boards like Series, Nitro Plus, Pulse, or anything similar to that, and I'll place them down in the link in the description. Links actually, because there'll be multiple boards if I can find them. And that'll be all for today, guys. Hopefully this insight about this SAPPHIRE Nitro B850A Wi-Fi 7 gave you an idea about how their motherboards perform and will perform in the future. And that's basically it. That's it. So guys, hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, click the notification bell, and I'll see you soon tomorrow in another one. Thanks. Bye bye.